Smoking is bad because it is very expensive to deal with all the complications that come with it, such as treating for cancer.
I think smoking is a bad habit because it's very costly to people, especially those who smoke more than one pack a day.
I believe smoking is really bad for your health because it lowers your life expectancy rate and people die faster from it.
Smoking is bad for you because it's very addictive, and usually when people start, they have trouble stopping.
Smoking has a long history in the United States. It began as an integral part of our economy and grew to become an American pastime. However, with advances in medical knowledge and technology, Americans grew to know its harmful effects on our health, and therefore a controversy was ignited. With increased government restrictions and involvement in smoking, some groups are pushing for the ultimate result, banning cigarette smoking in its totality. The question arises, when does tobacco change from being a freedom of choice marketable good to being a societal health risk? Smoking has existed for thousands of years. The Native Americans were known to smoke plants as a part of their ceremonies, and when Europeans settled in Virginia, they realized tobacco's incredible economic potential. In fact, tobacco was the first grown crop exported for monetary gains in the United States. Since its initial integration into the American fabric, smoking has played an important role in our economic and social development. By the 1800s, many people were using tobacco recreationally. Around the time of the American Civil War, cigarettes were introduced, and by the early 1900s, tobacco companies grew nearly 10 times in size. With the Industrial Revolution and the creation of factories, the industry continued to grow, often latching on to the stress of war to increase its profits. By the 1940s, it was considered fun, fashionable, and a way to showcase freedom and prosperity. Smoking was seen as a personal choice and freedom of expression, and this continues to be true today.
Newport tastes fresher, tastes better too. Newport tastes fresher, tastes better too than any other menthol cigarette.
However, in 1964, the oblivion of the dangers of cigarette smoking slowly began to erode when the Surgeon General published a report on the health risks. It was then that the subtext, "Cigarettes may be hazardous to your health," were mandated to be on every cigarette pack. The new knowledge of the harmful health effects prompted cigarette smoking to be banned from being advertised on television in 1970. This changed television ads to be anti-smoking.
Like father, like son. Think about it. For information on smoking and heart disease, ask your heart association.
Then, in the 80s, a boom in research and technology instigated a shift in cigarette use from a regular pastime to a potentially dangerous pursuit.
Ladies and gentlemen, the late Yul Brynner.
I really wanted to make a commercial when I discovered that I was that sick and my time was so limited. I wanted to make that commercial that says simply, now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke. Whatever you do, just don't smoke. If I could take back that smoking, we wouldn't be talking about any cancer.
It was during this decade that a U.S. court made history by awarding damages against a tobacco firm to the family of Rose Kipalone, a smoker who died of lung cancer. It was also in the 80s that the dangers of secondhand smoke became apparent.
Can share the risk of cancer with their folks, because this group would somehow form a family, and that's the way they became affected by secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke, secondhand smoke. That's the way they became affected by secondhand smoke.
We now know that secondhand cigarette smoke has 69 toxic chemicals that cause cancer, and the EPA and National Toxicology Program have classified secondhand smoke as a carcinogen. In the 80s, foundations such as the American Cancer Society, Actions on Smoking and Health, and the Heart Foundation began to focus on protesting the use of cigarettes and supporting stricter smoking laws and bans in the United States and around the world. In the 2000s, many states began banning smoking in public places, including Pennsylvania in 2008. Today we know that every year, 400,000 Americans die due to cigarette smoking, accounting for over 18% of all deaths in the United States.
It can cause cancer because of all the chemicals in it, and that causes mutations in your cells. It destroys your lungs and your ability to breathe properly. Over time, it can kill you through emphysema. Can secondhand smoke affect the body? Yes, secondhand smoke can definitely affect the body, because when you breathe out those carcinogens, or when the smoke is in your house, other toxins are created that are nasty for other people in the household, such as children or a spouse or others that don't smoke.
However, despite the known health risks, cigarette smoking still plays an incredibly large role in the economy. Since 1977, the amount of money the government has made taxing cigarettes has gone from $3 billion to $17 billion in 2010. In fact, earlier this month, Denver Judge Robert S. Doyle ruled that basic smoking bans were unconstitutional because it prevented bars, clubs, and restaurants from properly being able to establish their business. In 2010, the 6 leading tobacco companies in the world made a collective profit of $35.1 billion, the equivalent of the profits of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Microsoft combined. Tobacco companies are big profitable businesses, and banning cigarettes would force them into bankruptcy. As we saw when the recession began, when huge companies go bankrupt, the economy suffers incredibly. In a 2000 USDA report, this was realized, stating, "Public health policies intended to reduce the incidence of smoking-related disease adversely affect thousands of tobacco farmers, manufacturers, and other businesses." However, despite its economic importance, in 2009, Obama signed a new tobacco law, which gives the FDA incredible power in regulating tobacco use.
If you had a total ban on tobacco use, that strikes me as pretty impractical. We saw during Prohibition that didn't work very well. Many argue you see the same thing with the war on drugs, where the costs are quite high, many minority groups are in jail, you have a lot of people whose lives are ruined by something that many people think is fairly minor.
There is a historical cycle between different competing interests that can be seen throughout much of America's history when it comes to the controversy of smoking. The social, biological, and economic reasons for banning or not banning cigarette smoking are all important to understanding its historical development. In 1964, the controversy was ignited, but the importance of tobacco dates back to our country's conception. With each decade, we have seen the rise in knowledge about the health risks, but also the rise in its economic importance. In fact, in the time you're watching this presentation, 70 million cigarettes were sold.